Skybound Legacy, Legacy of a Traitor. The space station shook with the force of another explosion. Lights flickered. Smoke filled the narrow corridors. Screams echoed from every direction. Talia Vex sprinted down the hallway, her blaster tight in her grip. Behind her, two resistance fighters followed closely, dodging falling pipes and sparks shooting from the ceiling. Ahead, a group of civilians huddled near a sealed door, their faces pale with fear. "Move! We're here to get you out," Talia shouted. The civilians turned, hope lighting up their faces. A drone screamed through the air behind them. Talia spun, firing fast. Blue energy bolts hit the drone mid-flight, sending it crashing into the wall. "Come on, this whole place is going to blow," she yelled, waving the civilians forward. One by one, they rushed into the hallway. A mother held a crying child. An old man limped, supported by a teenage girl. Talia stayed at the back, shooting at more drones that poured in from a side tunnel. "Ren, is the shuttle ready?" she barked into her comm. "Almost." Ren's voice crackled. "But we've got company. 2 enemy cruisers closing in." Talia cursed under her breath. "Stall them. We're coming." They reached the airlock. One of her team members, Rex, hit the door controls, and it opened with a hiss. Cool air rushed in from the docked resistance transport. "Talia, get in," Rex called. But Talia paused. Her eyes scanned the corridor one last time. A small boy stood frozen, clutching a toy spaceship, his eyes wide with terror. Talia rushed forward, scooping him up just as another drone turned the corner. It opened fire. Bolts scorched the walls around her. She dove into the transport, the drone's last shot grazing her shoulder. The doors slammed shut behind her. "Punch it," she ordered. The shuttle launched away from the burning space station just seconds before a massive explosion tore it apart. Fire and metal fragments flew into the void. The civilians cried in relief. Some hugged each other. Talia leaned back in her seat, breathing heavily. Another mission done. Another fire survived. But inside, the fire in her heart never cooled. Later, in the Resistance Command Center, Talia stood at attention. Her black pilot suit still had burn marks on the sleeve. Commander Roan, a tall, silver-haired veteran, nodded at her. "Excellent work, Vex. You saved over 20 lives." Again, Talia didn't smile. She just nodded once. "You're a hero to these people," Roan added, his voice softer. "I didn't join for medals, sir." He gave her a knowing look. Still chasing redemption. Talia's jaw tightened, still trying to fix what my father broke. Roan sighed and dismissed her. "Get some rest. You've earned it." Talia left the room without a word. As she walked through the quiet halls of the base, people nodded respectfully. Some whispered her name, but others just stared, eyes filled with doubt, suspicion. She knew why. General Talia Vex, once a resistance leader, her own father, had betrayed them all. He leaked vital information to the Dominion, costing thousands of lives. He disappeared after the war, branded a traitor and coward. And now, no matter how many missions she completed, his shadow still followed her. Inside her quarters, Talia sat on her bunk. The room was small and plain. A medal sat untouched on the desk. A photo of her as a child, sitting on her father's shoulders, was tucked in a drawer. She reached for her arm, where the drone's bolt had grazed her. The burn still stung, but she didn't flinch. Pain was familiar, like an old friend. Just then, her wrist communicator beeped. Strange. No one contacted her directly like this. She tapped the screen. A message appeared, encrypted, unknown source. The Resistance network would usually block it, but somehow this one had slipped through. "Ni SSAG incoming. DECRYTing." Her eyes narrowed. Lines of code flickered. Then the screen turned black. Words appeared. "Talia, if you're reading this, Then you need to listen carefully. I don't have much time. Her heart stopped. The voice that followed made her freeze. It was deep, calm, familiar. It's me, Talia. Your father. She shot to her feet. I didn't betray the resistance. Everything you were told was a lie. And now, something far worse is coming. The real enemy is not who you think. Talia's mind spun. She stared at the screen, lips parted, breath caught in her throat. There's a hidden message in the old station logs. Sector 9. Look for the file marked VEILFIRD. They'll try to stop you. Trust no one. Not even the resistance. The screen went dark. Talia just stood there, heart pounding like a war drum. Her hands shook. Her father, alive, and claiming he wasn't the traitor. No, it can't be, she whispered. But a part of her, deep inside, hoped it was true. She sat back down slowly, the weight of the message settling in. If he was lying, then he was a master manipulator. If he was telling the truth, then the resistance, her new family, might be hiding something dark. She tapped her wrist calm again. Message deleted. No trace found. Gone, as if it never existed. Talia leaned forward, her mind racing. Sector 9 was deep in Dominion territory now, behind enemy lines. Going there would be suicide. But the name echoed in her mind like thunder. Veilfire. Whatever it was, it had to mean something. Maybe everything. Outside her window, the stars glowed silently. The war continued. Drones patrolled the edges of space. Cruisers hovered like ghosts. But now, for Talia, the real war had just begun. As Talia reached for her datapad to search the Resistance archives for Veilfire, her door beeped. Someone was outside. She hid the device quickly. The door slid open. Commander Roan stood there. He looked serious, too serious. I need to speak with you. Alone, he said. And for the first time, Talia noticed a strange coldness in his eyes. Ghosts of the past. Boom. The sound of orbital cannons firing filled the sky. Flames rose from the once busy city of Arian Prime. Resistance fighters ran through the streets, trying to evacuate civilians as Dominion dropships descended from the clouds like monsters from a nightmare. Buildings collapsed. Sirens screamed. Children cried. And above it all stood General Talia Vex, watching the destruction from a high balcony inside Resistance Command. He didn't speak. A junior officer rushed to him, face pale, hands trembling. Sir, the codes, they were leaked. The Dominion bypassed our shields. Someone gave them everything. Talia didn't answer. Instead, he turned slowly and walked away, leaving the officer shouting after him. Outside, Dominion troops stormed the city. The Resistance fell that day. Thousands died. Arian Prime was lost. And Talia Vex, once their most trusted general, vanished. Present day, Talia Vex stared at the decrypted message on her datapad. Her father's voice echoed in her head. Veilfire, Sector 9. You're being lied to. Trust no one. Her hands were cold. Her heart beat so hard she could feel it in her throat. She replayed the message again, listening carefully. Every word, every pause. There's a traitor inside the Resistance, someone close to power. And they're about to destroy everything we fought for. The message ended. Talia sat still in her quarters. 1,000 thoughts raced through her mind. What if this was a trap? What if her father really had betrayed the Resistance and was trying to pull her down with him? But what if he was telling the truth? What if there was someone else? Someone worse? Her thoughts were interrupted by a beep. The door opened. Commander Roan stepped in, his face as cold and unreadable as ever. Talia, he said, you've been reassigned. She stood quickly. Sir, you're to escort a diplomat. High level, critical to upcoming peace talks with outer colonies. Her name is Ambassador Lyra Nix. She arrives at Hangar Bay 4 in 1 hour. Talia nodded. Understood. But inside, her stomach twisted, because in her father's message, there was one more sentence she had tried to forget. Lyra Nix cannot be trusted. 1 hour later, Talia stood near her fighter, helmet in hand, as the shuttle carrying Ambassador Nix landed. The ship was sleek, black, polished, nothing like the rough Resistance transports. It hissed as it touched down, landing gear hitting the ground with a soft thud. The ramp lowered, and out walked Lyra Nix. She was tall, graceful, and wore a sharp white coat with silver trim. Her eyes were ice blue, and her smile didn't reach them. "Captain Vex," she greeted coolly. "I've heard stories." Talia nodded, hiding her unease. "Ready to fly, Ambassador?" "Always," Lyra said, stepping closer. "I prefer to travel light." Talia didn't reply. She guided her to the shuttle, keeping her expression blank. But her mind was spinning. If what her father said was true, then this woman could be the reason thousands might die. If he was lying, then Talia was starting to lose her grip on reality. Inside the cockpit, Ren waited, chewing gum and checking the flight systems. "Nice company," Ren muttered as he spotted Lyra stepping inside. "Just fly," Talia replied. The ship lifted off, soaring into the blackness of space. Their mission was to escort Lyra to Station Ilara, a diplomatic post near the border of Dominion-controlled space. It was a fragile zone. Any mistake could lead to a full war. As they flew, Talia kept glancing at Lyra. The ambassador sat calmly, eyes closed, as if meditating. But Talia noticed the small device on her wrist, a communicator that was not Resistance standard issue. She made a mental note. Hours passed. Midway through the journey, they stopped at a fueling outpost near an asteroid belt. The crew refueled and stepped out to stretch. Talia walked to a private terminal and slipped in her data drive. She searched the Resistance network. No results for Veilfire. She searched deeper. Accessed old, restricted files. Command logs. Her father's last known coordinates. Still nothing. But then she found something odd. A surveillance file, dated 3 days after Talia Vex supposedly vanished. It showed a Dominion fleet, but also a single Resistance ship flying away from the blast zone. The ship's ID, Ghost 9, the same ship her father once commanded. So he was alive. Suddenly, a voice behind her. "Looking for ghosts, Captain." Talia spun around. Lyra stood there, watching her. "I thought you were in the ship," Talia said calmly, hiding her surprise. "I was, but I like to walk," Lyra said, stepping closer. "You seem distracted." "Just reviewing flight plans." Lyra smiled slightly. "Good, because where we're going, distractions can be deadly." Her tone was soft, but there was a threat under the words. Back on board, Talia kept her helmet on longer than usual. She tapped a hidden button inside the visor, her private recorder. If anything happened, she wanted proof. The ship approached Station Ilara. Talia glanced at the nav console and saw a strange ping. A beacon, unauthorized, was active on the ship. She checked the source. It was coming from Lyra's communicator. "Ren," she whispered into her comm, "can you isolate that signal?" Ren frowned. "It's bouncing. Looks encrypted. Kill it. Now." Ren tapped a few keys. "Done." Talia turned to Lyra, who now looked annoyed. "Something wrong, Captain?" she asked. "You activated a beacon." "I did no such thing. It was traced to your wrist device." Lyra's smile vanished. "Are you accusing me of something?" Talia didn't blink. "Not yet." But before anything else could be said, an alarm blared through the ship. Ren cursed. 2 Dominion interceptors. They must have picked up the beacon before we shut it off. Talia jumped into action. Evasive maneuvers. Bring up shields. Outside, the enemy ships opened fire. Laser bolts scorched the hull. The ship shook violently. Talia launched countermeasures, weaving between asteroids. The Resistance shuttle was fast, but the Dominion interceptors were faster. Lyra held onto her seat, face pale but silent. Ren shouted, "If we take one more hit, we're dead." Talia's mind raced. "Think. Fast." She spotted a narrow asteroid tunnel. "Hang on," she yelled. The ship dove into the tight passage. One interceptor followed. Too fast, too close. Talia hit the brakes. The ship slowed just enough. The Dominion ship behind them smashed into the asteroid wall, exploding in a flash of fire. The second interceptor hesitated, and Ren launched a missile, striking it down. Silence. Talia breathed heavily. Sweat dripped from her forehead. Ren turned to her. "That was insane." "It worked," Talia said, but her eyes stayed on Lyra. The ambassador said nothing, just stared at the stars ahead. Later, as Talia filed her report in her private logs, she reviewed the ship's internal recordings and found something disturbing. During the attack, when everyone else was strapped in, Lyra had activated a hidden panel in the wall, inserted a device, and smiled. Talia froze the image. Her father had been right. Now the real question was, what is Lyra planning? And who else is involved? The diplomatic trap. Boom. The silence of space shattered as the lid ship in the convoy exploded. A fireball lit up the black void, and debris flew past the cockpit of Talia's shuttle. Inside, alarms blared. Ambush. Ren yelled, pulling the shuttle hard to the left. 3 stealth drones incoming. Talia grabbed the controls, her reflexes sharp. The ship spun through the wreckage field as enemy fire zipped past. Ambassador Lyra Nix clutched her seat. Her usual calm was gone. "What's happening?" "Ambush. Someone tipped them off," Talia growled. Her voice was steady, but inside, her mind raced. This wasn't a random attack. This was planned. The Resistance convoy had taken a detour through an empty sector. Quiet, low traffic. It was meant to be safe. Only a few trusted officials knew the route. And yet, here they were. Another Resistance fighter exploded ahead of them. "Ren, take us behind that moon fragment," Talia ordered. "We need cover." "I'm trying," he shouted. The shuttle weaved between floating rocks, using the asteroid field as a shield. The stealth drones, sleek black machines with glowing red eyes, gave chase. Talia armed the weapons. "Come on, just a little closer." As one drone lined up behind them, Talia fired a backblast torpedo. The drone was quick, but not quick enough. It exploded, lighting the rocks with red flame. "To left," Ren called out. The shuttle jerked violently as another drone clipped their left engine. Sparks flew inside the cockpit. Lyra screamed as the cabin lights flickered. "Engine damage," Ren shouted. "We're leaking fuel." Talia didn't panic. "Redirect power to shields. We can't outrun them. We'll fight." The second drone came into view, opening fire. Talia did something crazy. She turned the ship toward the drone. "Are you insane?" Ren yelled. But Talia was calm. She flew straight at the enemy, waited until the last second, and then flipped the ship upside down, firing 2 short-range blasts from underneath. The drone shattered into pieces. Only one left. The final drone suddenly stopped chasing. It pulled away and vanished into the shadows of space. Ren blinked. "It's retreating." Talia didn't answer, because she already knew the answer. It wasn't retreating. It was observing, measuring. The shuttle limped toward Station Ilara. The once beautiful diplomatic outpost now looked more like a ghost town. The outer hull was half burned, covered in emergency patches. Inside, flickering lights and damaged walls greeted them. Lyra was taken to the medical bay for a checkup. Talia stayed in the hangar. She watched as tech crews worked on the damaged engine. Ren stood beside her, bruised and tired. "That was no ordinary ambush," he said quietly. Talia nodded. "I know." She tapped her datapad. opening the encrypted recording she pulled from the last mission. Footage of Lyra activating a hidden device inside the ship. She triggered something before the drones arrived, Talia said. I don't believe in coincidence anymore. Ren frowned. You think she set us up? Talia didn't speak. She just stared at the video. Later, Talia made her way to the data core on Station Ilara. The station's AI was damaged, but the comm logs were still active. She searched for Ambassador Lyra Nix. Records showed that Lyra had attended dozens of peace meetings. But deeper inside the archives, something strange appeared. A false name. Used 3 times. Nyla Kren. That was the name used in Dominion border stations. The ID was flagged as restricted. Talia hacked deeper and found voice logs. Lyra's voice. No doubt about it. The resistance is stretched thin. Their faith is breaking. When the time comes, they'll collapse from within. Another message. Deliver the tracking signal during your escort mission. The drones will handle the rest. Talia froze. This was proof. Lyra Nix was working with the enemy. She stormed toward the medbay. But Lyra was gone. The nurse looked confused. She said she had permission to return to her shuttle. Talia ran to the hangar. Too late. Lyra's personal ship, hidden in the back corner of the bay, was gone. The launch doors were still sliding shut. Ren. Talia shouted into her comm. She's escaping. Lock the station down. I'm on it. But the station was already under strain. Lockdown systems failed. Talia jumped into her fighter. She blasted off, following the trail of heat Lyra's ship left behind. The chase began. The trail led toward a dark nebula, known as the Whispering Veil. It was dangerous, full of unstable plasma clouds, magnetic storms, and ghost signals. Perfect place to disappear. Talia flew into the storm. Lightning streaked through the clouds. Her sensors went blind. She kept flying anyway. Suddenly, her radar pinged. A Dominion ship. Small. Fast. Lyra's vessel. Talia tried to hail it. Ambassador Nix, stand down. You've been exposed. Return to Ilara or I will fire. No response. No response. Talia armed her weapons. Last warning. Still nothing. Just before she pulled the trigger, the enemy ship vanished into a cloaked tunnel. A hidden wormhole. Unknown coordinates. Gone. Talia hit the console in frustration. She turned back toward Ilara, her mind spinning. This was bigger than she thought. Someone high in the Resistance had helped cover Lyra's tracks, which meant the traitor wasn't working alone. Back at Station Ilara, Talia uploaded the communications logs. She encrypted the files and sent them to her personal storage, off-network. She couldn't trust anyone now. Ren joined her in the command room. You okay? He asked. Talia didn't answer right away. She looked out the viewport into the stars. She was never a diplomat, she said softly. She was a weapon. Ren folded his arms, and she just vanished. She didn't run, Talia said. She's going somewhere. Meeting someone. Ren raised an eyebrow. Who? Talia turned to him. I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. Later that night, in the quiet of her quarters, Talia sat at her terminal. She opened the communications log again. This time, she noticed something new. A shared encryption pattern. The same code used in her father's message, and the same code used by Lyra. She froze. This wasn't just about a single betrayal. It was a network. And somehow, her father was either inside it or hunting it from within. Talia's eyes narrowed. One thing was clear. The real war wasn't out there. It was already inside the Resistance. Resistance within. The halls of Resistance Command were quiet. Too quiet. Talia Vex moved like a shadow through the steel corridors. Her black infiltration suit absorbed the dim emergency lighting. A soft hum echoed under her boots. It was well past midnight cycle, Most officers were asleep. The perfect time to break the rules. She approached the main data core. 2 security drones hovered near the sealed door. Talia reached into her belt and pulled out a pulse jammer. She tossed it behind a supply crate. Click. The device blinked red and gave off a soft electric whine. The drones turned, just for a second. That was all she needed. She sprinted forward, slid under their sensors, and hacked the door. Her gloves glowed blue as she overrode the biometric scan. Ping. The door slid open. Talia slipped inside. The Resistance data core was a glowing tower of blue energy and spinning storage crystals. Giant screens showed real-time troop movements, supply routes, and encrypted messages across star systems. Talia moved fast. She inserted a flash core drive into the console. Her father's encryption key still worked. It opened a hidden layer in the system. She wasn't sure what she expected. But not this. Hundreds of files flooded the screen. Private logs, secret transactions, and off-record missions. Most of it was scrambled. Then she found it. Project Revenant. She clicked. The files opened. Maintain controlled conflict across outer colonies. Supply chain profits up 440%. Military surplus sales authorized. Keep war momentum steady. Her breath caught. These weren't enemy files. They were from Resistance High Command. One name appeared again and again. Commander Rourke, her mentor, her superior officer, the man who promoted her just 2 months ago. He was one of them. Talia scrolled further. Video logs. Meetings. The war funds everything. If it ends, so do we. The people need an enemy. Hope is not profitable. She shook her head in disbelief. They were prolonging the war on purpose, sacrificing lives for power, credits, and influence. The Dominion wasn't the only enemy. The corruption ran deep. It was inside the Resistance itself. Her hands trembled as she copied the files. Suddenly, crack! A stun bolt hit her shoulder. Talia collapsed with a grunt. The flash drive skidded across the floor. Her vision blurred. Goots approached. She blinked up through haze. Commander Rourke stood above her, flanked by 2 armed guards. His face was stone. "I always hoped I was wrong about you," he said quietly. "But you just couldn't let it go." Talia tried to speak, but the stun charge made her tongue heavy. "You broke into a secure zone," Rourke continued, "and accessed classified data. That's treason. You're the traitor," she managed to whisper. He sighed. "No, I'm a realist. And soon you'll understand. Or you won't. Either way, it ends tonight." He motioned to the guards. "Take her to the holding cells. Solitary. No comms, no visitors." The cell was cold and dark. 4 walls. No window, just silence. Talia sat on the floor, nursing her burn wound. Her mind spun. She had the truth, but now she was branded a traitor. She didn't know who to trust. Was Ren part of it too? Had he known? She closed her eyes. Her father had tried to warn her. The message. The diplomat. Now this. She had been blind for too long. A soft beep echoed in the cell. A vent cover near the ceiling slid open. A tiny drone floated in, one of the old models. Obsolete, harmless looking. But Talia recognized it. It was her father's design. The drone blinked. A voice played. "I told you they'd come for you, but there's still time. Find the real core. And trust no one." Talia stood slowly. She reached for the drone. It blinked again and revealed a map. A secret sublevel beneath Resistance HQ. One she never knew existed. Then the drone self-destructed, quietly, without alarm. Talia clenched her jaw. If she was going to survive, if she was going to save what was left of the Resistance, she'd have to escape. Soon. Because war was no longer just out there. The real war was within. Outside her cell, Commander Rourke watched a silent video feed. He had seen the drone. He had heard the message. He turned to a shadowy figure beside him. "Prepare the extraction team," Rourke said, "and find the old man. If Talia Vex is alive, we finish him this time." Trial by fire. A harsh white light burned into Talia's eyes. She sat, cuffed to a metal chair, in a small cold room. Her left cheek was swollen. Blood crusted near her brow. Her lips were cracked. The interrogation had gone on for hours. A man stood across from her, Lieutenant Merrick, once her squad mate, now her interrogator. "You accessed restricted intel. You broke into Resistance Command. You've aligned with a known traitor. Deny it." Talia said nothing. Her silence was louder than any words. "You're throwing your life away, Talia," Merrick said, pacing. "You're better than this. We trusted you. I trusted you." She finally looked up, eyes sharp. "Then why are you here, trying to break me?" Merrick slammed his hands on the table. "Because I need to know the truth. Were you working with Talia Vex?" Talia's jaw clenched. She didn't answer. Outside the room, Commander Rourke watched through the observation window. He stood with a stern-faced officer in a gray coat. "She's cracked," Rourke said. "Won't last much longer. Push harder." The officer raised an eyebrow. "You're sure she doesn't have the files?" "She had them," Rourke replied. "She probably passed them to someone. Maybe even her father. We'll find out." Hours passed. They moved Talia back to her cell. Her steps were weak. Her wrists were raw. Inside, she sat in silence, alone. Again. She stared at the wall, trying to stay focused, trying not to break. They wanted her to become what they said she was, a traitor, but she wouldn't give them that. Even when her old squad mates visited, Sergeant Nyla, her old wingmate, stood outside the bars. "We fought side by side for years," Nyla said. "You saved my life more than once. And now, they say you betrayed us." Talia didn't answer. Nyla stepped closer. "Is it true?" "I didn't betray the Resistance," Talia said softly. "I'm trying to save it." "From what?" Nyla asked. "From us." Talia looked her in the eyes. "From the ones pulling the strings. The ones who want the war to never end." Nyla didn't respond. She turned and walked away. The lights flickered. A low alarm sounded in the distance. Talia stood, alert. Something wasn't right. Suddenly, the floor trembled. Explosions echoed through the prison block. Shouts rang out. Guards ran past her cell, weapons drawn. Then, boom! The wall across the corridor blew inward. Smoke filled the air. Out of the dust came shadows. Armed figures in dark armor, faces masked. Talia stepped back. The lead figure pointed at her. "There, get the door open." One of the fighters pulled a plasma cutter and sliced the lock. The door creaked open. Talia raised her fists. "Who are you?" "We're friends," the masked fighter said. "Your father sent us." Her breath caught. The squad moved fast. One of them handed Talia a pistol and a comms device. "No time," the leader said. "Rourke's forces are falling back. Extraction in 5 minutes." They ran. Down burning hallways. Past dead guards. Through emergency tunnels. Talia's mind spun. Her heart pounded. Why now? Why risk everything to rescue her? The squad reached a hangar bay. A sleek black dropship waited, engines humming. They boarded quickly. Inside, Talia turned to the masked leader. "Why would my father save me?" After all these years, the fighter slowly removed their helmet. Talia froze. It was him, General Talia Vex. Older, battle-scarred. His hair gray, but the same intense eyes, the same calm voice. "Because you're my daughter," he said. "And because I need your help." She stepped back, confused, angry, shocked. "You abandoned us," she whispered. "You betrayed everything." "I tried to expose the truth," Kale replied. "But they twisted the story. They turned me into the villain. Talia raised her pistol. Why should I trust you? Kale didn't flinch. Because the resistance you believe in doesn't exist. Not anymore. And if we don't stop them, no one will. The dropship shook as it lifted off. Sirens blared below. Talia's hands trembled. She didn't lower the pistol. Not yet. But part of her, the part that still remembered her father reading stories to her as a child, wanted to believe, to hope. As the dropship disappeared into the stars, Commander Rourke stood in the wrecked prison block. He looked at the smoldering cell and the bodies of fallen guards. Activate the blackout protocol, he said. A nearby officer paled. That hasn't been used in years. Exactly, Rourke replied. If Talia Vex is back, it's time we finish what we started. Father and daughter. The radiation storm outside roared like a beast. The derelict ship creaked with every wave of cosmic energy as Talia Vex stood in the dark, staring at the man she had spent years hating. General Talia Vex, her father. His face was older, lined with scars and shadows, but his eyes, those same cold, calculating eyes, were locked on hers. Talia's hands were still trembling from the prison break. She hadn't had time to breathe, let alone process this. You're alive, she said, her voice cold. After all these years, after everything you did. I didn't betray the resistance, Kale said, stepping closer. I exposed the ones who did. Talia's mind screamed. She wanted to punch him, to scream, to run. But she couldn't move. The ship hummed with energy, old systems struggling to keep up as radiation pounded the hull. You want me to believe that? She spat. You handed over Erios Prime. Thousands died. Cal's face twisted in pain. And I carry them with me every day. But that mission, Talia, it was already compromised. I tried to warn Command. They ignored me. So I did the only thing I could. I staged my fall. Talia shook her head. You abandoned us. You abandoned me. I saved you, he said, voice low. The people running the resistance now, they profit from this war. They need the fight to go on. Anyone who threatens that, they silence them. I was next on their list. Talia turned away, heart pounding. His words sounded insane, but they lined up with what she had seen in the command center. The files, the secret messages, the diplomat. Kale reached into a crate and pulled out a small holographic disc. He pressed it, and a grainy image of Resistance Command appeared, discussing targets, cutting deals with alien arms dealers, prolonging conflicts for gain. I spent years gathering this, he said. I built a network. We call ourselves the True Resistance. We're scattered, rogue fighters, ex-commanders, engineers who saw too much. And we need you, Talia. She turned back to him. Why now? Why pull me out of prison? Because you're the key, he said simply. You have access. Respect. You're Talia Vex's daughter and the Resistance's rising star. You can expose them. Silence fell. Only the crackle of radiation outside and the soft hum of life support systems filled the space. Then Talia laughed bitterly. You think I'd work with you? After all this time? I'm not asking for your forgiveness, he said. I'm offering you the truth. Talia stepped forward, eyes blazing. You lie to everyone. To me. And now you expect me to trust you. No, he said quietly. I expect you to decide for yourself. You can walk away. I'll give you a ship. You can disappear, or you stay. Help me finish this. End the corruption. He handed her a data pad, full of names, places, transmissions, proof. I don't want to be a hero, she whispered, taking the pad. I just want the truth. Then help me show it, he said. Outside, lightning cracked through space, blinding light flashing through the ship's narrow windows. Talia stared at the data pad. Her name was on the command's kill list, marked for elimination after her next mission. They had planned it all. Her arrest. her fall, her death. She closed her eyes. Her father was a ghost, but maybe, just maybe, he was the only one who hadn't lied. She looked up. "All right," she said. "I'll help you, but the first lie you tell me, I walk." Kale nodded. "Fair." Suddenly, the ship shuddered. Warning lights blared. Talia rushed to the console. Incoming signal. A Resistance patrol ship had picked up their signature. "They're scanning for us," Talia said, fingers moving fast. Kale jumped into the pilot's seat. "We need to jump, now." Talia slammed the coordinates into the system. "There's a dead zone in the outer belt. We can hide there." Engines roared to life. The old ship shook violently as Kale pulled it into a steep dive toward the asteroid belt. Blasts from the Resistance ship lit up the radar. "They're firing." "Evasive maneuvers," Talia shouted. "Already on it." Kale snapped. Explosions rocked the hull as they sped through a narrow gap between two spinning rocks. Sparks flew from the ceiling. Fire suppression systems kicked in. "Shields down to 32%, Talia yelled. Kale grit his teeth and hit the thrusters hard. "Hold on." The ship twisted, flipped, and dove beneath a massive asteroid. One final blast clipped their wing, sending them into a spin. But then, silence. They made it. For now. Kale slumped in his seat, breathing hard. Talia looked at him. "Still think you're the good guy?" "I think I'm the only one doing something," he replied. She didn't argue. Instead, she stared out the window as the asteroid belt drifted past like giants in the dark. Her father, her enemy, was now her only ally. And the Resistance she once believed in, it might be the enemy now. She clutched the datapad tighter. This war wasn't just about aliens anymore. It was about truth, about survival, about justice. Kale stood and opened a hidden panel, revealing a narrow corridor leading to a secure room. Inside were 6 figures: soldiers, engineers, even a former Resistance medic. Members of the true Resistance. "This is what's left of us," Kale said. "The last fire in the dark." They all looked at her, waiting. Talia met their eyes. She didn't know if she was ready. But she did know one thing. The lies had to end. Before she could speak, an alert chimed. One of the engineers checked the console. "It's the diplomat," he said. "She's back in command. And she's calling for your execution, publicly." Talia's stomach dropped. "She's speeding things up," Kale said. "She knows you're alive. She's panicking." Talia stared at the screen. A live feed showed the diplomat at Resistance HQ, telling reporters Talia had escaped with the help of terrorists. She was being painted as a double agent, a traitor. "She's framing me," Talia whispered. "No," Kale said, stepping beside her. "She's framing us. That's the difference." Talia's face hardened. "Then we hit first." She turned to the others. "Let's take the Resistance apart, brick by brick." The team nodded. Kale smiled. And just like that, the war changed again. Outside, the diplomat stands in a dark hallway, speaking to an unseen figure. "Vex and his daughter won't survive. Activate Protocol 0. A distorted voice replies. "Confirmed. The purge begins at dawn." Shadows in the stars. The dim lights of the weapons depot flickered as Talia crept through the dark hallways, her heart pounding. The walls felt like they were closing in, every step taking her closer to the truth she dreaded to find. The Resistance had always claimed they fought for freedom, for justice, but the deeper she dug, the more she realized it was all a lie. And now, this, the weapons depot on the edge of Resistance-controlled space, in the heart of enemy territory, was the final piece of the puzzle. The depot was quiet, too quiet. The hum of machinery was the only sound, low and steady. Talia's boots made no noise as she navigated through the maze of steel corridors. The faint smell of oil and burned metal lingered in the air. She checked her map, scanning the encrypted coordinates. The Resistance had been developing their weapons, but so had the enemy. Talia had seen both sides push the boundaries of science and war. But this place, it felt wrong. As she reached a security door, she paused. A camera scanned the area, but Talia was already 2 steps ahead. A flash of light, a soft click, and the door was open. She moved inside. What she saw inside froze her. Rows upon rows of twisted biomechanical soldiers, half human, half machine, stood in stasis pods, waiting for the day they would be unleashed. Monsters. She had heard rumors of such creatures, but seeing them with her own eyes made her stomach twist in disgust. The Resistance, her people, were using the same methods the enemy had employed, experimenting with the same gruesome technology. Worse yet, Talia recognized the insignia on the pods. It was the same symbol as her father's faction, the true Resistance. They had been building these abominations, not just for the enemy, but for themselves too. Her thoughts raced. The war wasn't just a conflict. It was a business, a way to profit, to manipulate. Both sides had made deals, exchanging weapons, technology, and most horrifyingly, lives. Talia had uncovered the truth. The war would never end. Not until one side had completely wiped out the other, or until the leaders had bled the galaxy dry. But before she could process the full extent of the horrors before her, the door behind her slammed open. A figure stood in the doorway, tall, imposing, and clad in the dark armor of the enemy's elite forces. His face was hidden behind a helmet, but his presence radiated authority. Talia instinctively reached for her sidearm. But before she could pull the trigger, a blinding pain shot through her leg. She dropped to one knee, vision blurring. A tranquilizer dart. She cursed under her breath, feeling her muscles lock up. The figure approached, bending down and grabbing her by the throat, lifting her off the ground. The grip was tight, but not lethal. Yet. "You're the one they've been looking for," the enemy admiral said in a voice as cold as ice. His tone was both amused and calculating. Talia Vex, the daughter of General Vex. Talia struggled to breathe, her hand still trying to reach her weapon. You won't win. You won't stop the Resistance." The admiral's helmet tilted slightly, as if considering her words. "The Resistance is nothing but a puppet show. The real war is for power. The war will end, but only on our terms." He dropped her unceremoniously to the ground, and she coughed, gasping for air. "We've been watching you," he continued, his tone now colder. "You've seen the truth, the game they've been playing, the game you've been playing. You want to stop it. I can help you. I have a proposal." Talia struggled to her feet, glaring at him. "What do you want?" The admiral stepped closer, his boots clanking against the metal floor. "I want the Resistance to fall. I want the war to end. The only way that happens is if the leadership is removed. They're the ones who've kept this war going. The ones who profit from it." Talia's eyes narrowed. "You think I'll betray my people, after everything they've done for me?" "The question is," he said, "how much are you willing to sacrifice to stop the bloodshed? Your father knows the truth. He's been a part of this all along. The true Resistance, your father's faction, is just as corrupt as the ones in power. They're playing their own game. I can end it all, but only if you help me bring them down." The words hit like a blow to her gut. Betray the Resistance. Betray her own father. She looked up at the admiral, trying to gauge his sincerity. Was he just another puppet in this game? Or was he telling the truth? "Help me," he repeated. "End the war, and I'll guarantee the survival of your people. I'll guarantee the survival of your father too." Talia's mind spun. She couldn't trust him, could she? But the evidence, the bodies, the experiments, they all pointed to one terrible conclusion. The Resistance and the enemy were the same. They were all playing a deadly game of survival. A game where the people were nothing but pawns. "I don't want this war anymore," Talia said quietly, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. "But I won't betray them. Not for you. Not for anyone. The Admiral's expression behind his mask was unreadable, but his voice grew colder. Then I'll be back for you, Talia Vex. You can't escape the truth. You can't escape the war. Before she could respond, he turned and walked away, leaving her alone in the darkened depot, surrounded by the twisted creations of both sides. The doors slammed shut behind him. Talia stood in the shadows, her body aching from the tranquilizer. Her heart was torn, but her resolve was stronger than ever. The war would end, but it would end on her terms. Talia activated her comm device, her voice steady but determined. Kale, I found something. I need to speak with you. It's worse than we thought. Outside, the stars continued to burn in the cold void of space, but inside the depot, the shadows were growing longer. Crossroads of loyalty. The enemy warship loomed like a predator in the void of space, its sleek, polished surface reflecting the stars above. Talia stood on the observation deck, her gaze fixed on the endless expanse outside. A sense of unease gnawed at her insides, but she couldn't deny the allure of what awaited her inside. The Admiral had given her an offer: peace, freedom, and power. In the span of a few days, her life had been flipped upside down. Her father's betrayal, the Resistance's lies, the war that seemed endless and senseless. And now, the Admiral has shown her a path forward, a way out. But at what cost? The heavy footsteps of the Admiral approached. He entered the room with his usual cold composure, his dark armor gleaming even in the low light. "You've seen what your Resistance is capable of," he said, his voice calm and confident. "You've seen the truth of their corruption. They want war. They thrive on it. But I offer you a different future." Talia didn't look at him. She couldn't. The weight of her decision was too much to bear. "You're lying," she finally said, her voice low but firm. "The Resistance isn't perfect, but they're fighting for freedom. They're fighting for the people." The Admiral laughed softly, walking around her in slow circles. "Freedom. They're fighting for control. They'll stop at nothing to preserve their power. You think they care about the people? Look at what they've done." He moved toward a large console embedded in the wall. With a few swift keystrokes, a hologram flickered to life in front of her. The image was grainy, but clear enough, footage of a Resistance attack. A small civilian settlement, peaceful and unarmed, was obliterated by high-powered weapons. Talia's heart dropped. She recognized the faces of some of the people in the video. They were innocents, farmers, families, caught in the crossfire of a conflict they had nothing to do with. They had been slaughtered in cold blood, and the Resistance command had ordered the attack. "This," the Admiral said, gesturing to the footage, "is what your leaders are willing to do to maintain control. They'll kill anyone who stands in their way, anyone who might threaten their grip on power. The war will never end if they're in charge." Talia felt her legs go weak. She stumbled back, her mind racing. The Resistance, her people, had done this. They had slaughtered innocent civilians, all for the sake of what? Power. Control. Why would they do this? Talia whispered, her voice barely audible. The Admiral's expression softened, almost as if he were pitying her. "Because that's what war does. It twists people. And the Resistance has been twisting for years. They've been feeding off the suffering of others, using the war as an excuse to expand their influence, their power. You've seen it, Talia. You've seen the darkness beneath their noble cause. The only way to end this, to bring real peace, is to tear it all down." Talia's mind was in turmoil. She had always believed in the Resistance. She had fought for them, trusted them, loved them. But what if everything she had fought for was built on lies? What if the enemy wasn't the real monster after all? What if the real monsters were the ones she had been fighting alongside all this time? The Admiral stepped closer, his tone soft but persuasive. "Join me, Talia. Help me bring an end to this endless cycle of bloodshed. We can take control and bring about real peace, not the fake peace your Resistance is offering. We will rebuild from the ground up with you at my side. Together, we can make the galaxy a better place." Talia's breath caught in her throat. The offer was tempting, too tempting. Power, peace, a chance to reshape the galaxy into something better. But could she trust him? Could she trust anyone anymore? "Why me?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Why do you need me?" "Because," the Admiral said, his voice low and earnest, "you understand the truth. You know what it's like to be betrayed. You know what it's like to see the world for what it really is. I need you, Talia, because you have the power to expose the lies of the Resistance. You've already seen it with your own eyes. Together, we can bring the galaxy into a new era." The silence stretched between them. Talia's mind raced. The weight of her choices felt unbearable. She wanted to believe in something. Anything. She had given everything to the Resistance, and now it seemed like everything she had fought for had been nothing but a lie. Her father's words echoed in her mind. The truth is always harder to bear than the lies we tell ourselves. She clenched her fists, fighting the tears that threatened to spill. She had always known the world was complicated, that there were no easy answers. But this was too much. How could she choose between the people she loved and the truth she had uncovered? "Think about it, Talia," the Admiral said, his voice growing colder. "This is your chance to finally put an end to the war, to stop the madness once and for all. We'll bring peace to the galaxy, but only if you make the right choice." The room seemed to close in on her. She could feel the weight of his words pressing down on her, suffocating her. Peace, power. The future of the galaxy hung in the balance, and the person who would determine that future was her. Talia turned away, staring out the observation window once more. The stars outside were just tiny specks of light in the vastness of space, each one representing a life. A choice. Her choice. As she stared into the infinite darkness, the Admiral's voice broke the silence one final time. "What will you do, Talia? Will you help me end the war, or will you remain loyal to a corrupt Resistance?" Talia closed her eyes, the weight of the decision pressing on her chest. She had no idea what her next step would be, but she knew that no matter what, it would change everything. The burning choice. The council chamber was filled with tension. The large, circular room echoed with the sounds of shouting as Resistance leaders clashed over strategy, tactics, and the ongoing war. The air was thick with anger and uncertainty. But none of that mattered to Talia right now. She had one purpose: to confront them with the truth. The leaders of the Resistance had never seen her like this. Gone was the confident soldier they had once trusted. In her place stood a woman who had seen the darkness of their actions and refused to turn away from it. Talia strode into the room, the heavy doors sliding shut behind her with a loud thud. She held the evidence firmly in her hands: footage, reports, and communication logs, all undeniable proof of the corruption that had festered inside their ranks. The room fell silent as Talia's presence commanded attention. She walked to the center of the chamber and placed the data pad on the table, her eyes locking with those of the council members. "You all deserve to know the truth." Talia's voice was steady, but the anger that simmered beneath her calm exterior was unmistakable. "This is the proof you've been asking for." The Resistance leaders exchanged wary glances, unsure of what was coming. But Talia didn't wait for them to respond. She activated the data pad, and the holographic display flickered to life in front of them. The footage that appeared was damning. Clear evidence of Resistance leaders orchestrating attacks on innocent civilians, manipulating public opinion, and holding secret meetings with the enemy. One by one, the leaders of the Resistance began to fidget in their seats, unable to hide their discomfort. The truth was undeniable. The very people who had sworn to protect the galaxy, to fight for the innocent, had been responsible for some of the worst atrocities of the war. Talia's voice rang out, cold and unwavering. "You call yourselves the leaders of the Resistance, but you are nothing more than warmongers who have used the suffering of others to maintain your power. You've killed innocents, manipulated your soldiers, and lied to everyone you've sworn to protect. A murmur of shock spread through the room as the council members glanced nervously at each other. Some seemed guilty, others defiant, but all were shaken. The Resistance had always prided itself on being the beacon of hope in a galaxy torn by war. But now, that illusion was shattered. You can't deny it anymore, Talia continued. You've betrayed the people you promised to protect, and now you will answer for it. A sharp voice cut through the tension. General Vex, the man who had once been her commander, stood at the back of the room. His expression was grim, his eyes filled with a mixture of regret and anger. Enough, Talia, he said, his voice low but commanding. You know what the Resistance is capable of. You know the sacrifices we've made. There's more at stake here than just your personal vendetta. Talia turned to face him, her expression hardening. Sacrifices? You mean the lives of innocent civilians? You've lied to us, used us as pawns in a war that's never going to end. How many more must die because of your greed? Vex stepped forward, his hand gripping the back of a chair for support. He was tired, physically and emotionally. I did what I had to do. The Resistance wasn't perfect, but it was the only thing standing between the galaxy and total chaos. A new voice cut in, sharp and accusing. And what about us, Vex? What about the soldiers who followed you? Were we just tools to be discarded when it suited you? Talia turned toward the new speaker, a commander who had served under Vex for years. His tone was filled with anger, but there was a deep hurt in his eyes. You've spent so many years hiding behind a cause, but at what cost? We're all paying for your decisions now. Before Vex could respond, the doors of the chamber burst open, and a new figure entered the room. A rogue commander, his face twisted with rage. Without a word, he marched toward the council's central table, pulling out a small device from his jacket. Talia's heart skipped a beat as the rogue commander slammed the device onto the table. The screens around the room flashed red, and an ominous countdown began. A planet-destroying weapon, the rogue commander said with a sneer. It's set to launch, and it's your fault, General Vex. You let this happen. Vex's eyes widened, and for a moment, the room went deathly still. Talia's mind raced as she realized what was happening. The rogue commander had stolen the weapon, one that had been hidden in plain sight under the guise of a secret project, and he was about to use it to destroy an entire planet. The Resistance's future was about to be reduced to ashes. Shut it down, Vex commanded, his voice breaking through the stunned silence. But it was too late. The rogue commander, a former ally turned traitor, had already activated the weapon. The countdown continued, and the room filled with a growing sense of dread. Talia knew they didn't have much time. Without thinking, she rushed toward the rogue commander, her hand reaching for her blaster. But before she could make her move, Vex stepped in front of her, his hand gripping her arm tightly. Don't, he said quietly. I'll handle this. Talia's eyes narrowed, but she knew he was right. She stepped back, watching as Vex moved with purpose toward the rogue commander. The tension in the room thickened as Vex reached out, trying to deactivate the weapon. But before he could get close, the rogue commander lunged at him, knocking him to the floor. The weapon's countdown ticked faster, and the air was filled with the sound of rapid footsteps and frantic shouts. In a final desperate attempt to stop the countdown, Vex reached for the weapon. The rogue commander, however, was quicker. He drove a blade into Vex's side, and the general cried out in pain. Talia rushed forward, but it was too late. Vex collapsed to the floor, blood pooling around him. General, she shouted, kneeling beside him. Vex, weak and barely conscious, reached up to grab her hand. Talia, you have to finish this. Stop the weapon. Talia's heart shattered as she held his hand. No, please, don't leave me like this. Vex's eyes fluttered open one last time, and he whispered, the Resistance is finished, but you can still save the galaxy. Finish what I started. His hand fell limp in hers as the room around her descended into chaos. Talia's heart raced as she stared at the rogue commander, still standing tall and unyielding. The weapon's countdown was almost at zero, and the fate of an entire planet hung in the balance. General Vex was gone, and now it was up to her. The burning choice had come. Would she follow through on her father's final wish and stop the weapon, or would she watch as everything she had known crumbled before her eyes? Skybound Legacy. The final battle had arrived. The skies above the vital resistance world burned with flashes of light, each explosion echoing the desperation of the war. The once pristine planetscape was now scarred, its surface torn apart by months of relentless conflict. But today, everything would be decided. Above the skies, in the heart of the battle. Talia stood at the helm of the rebel fleet, her heart pounding as she gazed out at the chaos unfolding before her. The fleet had assembled in a final stand. Against the enemy, yes, but also against the corrupt resistance leadership that had helped orchestrate this war. Her hands gripped the control panel, and every muscle in her body was coiled with tension. This was her moment. The war had to end today. She had no choice but to lead. She had made sacrifices, too many, but it was all for this. For a future without the bloodshed, without the manipulation, without the lies. All ships, prepare for combat. Talia's voice was steady, cutting through the comm system to each member of the fleet. We end this now. For the galaxy, for those who died, for all those we still have left to protect. The rebel fleet surged forward, their weapons primed and ready. The enemy ships, their ships, loomed in the distance. The battle raged on, ships darting in and out of combat, bright laser beams flashing across the void. But there was more at stake than just the battle. The planet-destroying weapon that had nearly been launched days before was still in the hands of the corrupt resistance. Talia knew that they were about to use it, to destroy the last stronghold of the resistance and crush any hope for peace. The stakes were higher than ever. We have to stop it, or we lose everything. Talia muttered to herself as she watched the weapon platform in the distance, heavily guarded by the enemy. The weapon itself was massive, a dark, ominous structure floating just beyond the battlefield, its power ready to wipe out entire planets with a single strike. As Talia watched, the voice of General Vex echoed in her mind. His final words to her, "Finish what I started. Stop the weapon." The memory drove her forward. She had to do this for him, for the future of everyone who had fought for a better world. Her eyes narrowed as she issued the order. Launch all squadrons. Target the weapon platform first. We can't afford to waste time. The rebel fleet launched their attack, charging toward the heart of the enemy defense. Talia's ship led the charge, weaving through a barrage of enemy fire as the battle escalated around them. The rebel fighters moved in perfect sync, coordinated and sharp, following her lead. But as they approached the weapon platform, disaster struck. Incoming. The warning blared over the comms. Talia's ship rocked violently as enemy fighters swarmed in from all sides. She slammed her hand against the controls, dodging the laser fire as the ship lurched to one side, narrowly avoiding a direct hit. Brace for impact. The voice of her co-pilot shouted as the ship buckled under another round of fire. Talia gritted her teeth, refusing to back down. She wasn't going to die here, not when there was so much at stake. We press on. Full speed ahead. The ship's engines roared as it shot forward, charging toward the weapon platform. The rebel fleet followed in her wake, fighting off the enemy forces, but it was clear the battle was tipping toward the enemy's advantage. Target the core reactor of the platform. We end this now. Talia shouted into the comms. The rebel ships moved into position, their guns firing in unison, creating a blistering wall of fire, aimed directly at the heart of the platform. But the enemy was ready. A new wave of defense systems activated, shields flashing into place, blocking their shots. We need a clear shot, Talia shouted, eyes scanning the battlefield. She turned to her co-pilot, a grim look on her face. Get us closer, now. Her ship dove, narrowly avoiding more fire as it sped toward the platform. The tension was unbearable. Every moment felt like an eternity. And then the unthinkable happened. An explosion rocked their ship, and a violent shudder ran through the hull. The weapon platform had retaliated, firing a direct shot at them. The impact sent them spiraling out of control. The rebel fleet was in chaos, but through it all, Talia stayed focused. "Do it," she screamed. The co-pilot gripped the controls, guiding the ship straight into the heart of the weapon platform, the last line of defense between the galaxy and utter destruction. Talia's heart raced as they neared the core. Then, in a split second, it all fell into place. Talia's hand flew to the activation switch on her console. She pressed the button with all her might, knowing the consequences of her actions. The ship's emergency thrusters ignited, sending them crashing directly into the weapon platform. The explosion was deafening. The shockwave rippled through space, the bright light of the blast spreading out like a supernova. The weapon platform erupted in flames, its destructive power neutralized in a brilliant flash. But Talia's ship, her team, was gone. She had sacrificed everything. For a brief moment, everything went still. And then, from the depths of space, Talia's battered form appeared, floating in the black void. Her suit was damaged, her body bruised and bloodied, but she was alive. Somehow, she had survived the explosion. Her breath came in shallow gasps as she drifted alone in space, her vision blurry. The rebel fleet had won, the weapon was destroyed, and the corrupt resistance leaders had been exposed. The future of the galaxy lay in Talia's hands. Back on the now victorious battlefield, Talia was rescued by the remaining ships of the rebel fleet. She was brought aboard a medical vessel, her body still reeling from the sacrifice. As the ship took her back to the Resistance Command, her mind raced with everything she had lost and everything she had gained. She had saved the galaxy, yes, but at what cost? The death of General Vex, the loss of so many, the destruction of the weapon, but also of the very people who had once been her comrades. When Talia returned to the Resistance Command, she was greeted with a hero's welcome. The fleet's victory was celebrated, and the galaxy rejoiced at the end of the war. But as the celebrations continued, Talia was faced with a choice, one that would shape the future of the galaxy. A council of leaders gathered around her, offering her the position of Supreme Commander of the new Unified Peace Council. She had led them to victory, and now they wanted her to lead them into a new era of peace and prosperity. But Talia's heart was heavy. The war had cost too much. She had seen the ugly truth of what war could do to people. The lies, the betrayal, the manipulation. She was not ready to lead a galaxy still steeped in those same dark forces. "I've done enough," she said quietly, her eyes distant. The council tried to convince her, but Talia knew her path. She couldn't stay, not when there were so many scars still left to heal. And so, she made her decision. "I choose to disappear," Talia said, her voice strong. "The galaxy needs more than a leader who seeks power. It needs a chance to rebuild." With that, she turned away from the council, walking out of the room. The galaxy had been saved, but her place in it had ended. Talia took a shuttle, leaving the Resistance behind. She set her course for the stars. No destination in mind, no future planned, only the endless void to drift through, seeking peace in a world that had known nothing but war. As Talia disappeared into the vastness of space, she left behind a legacy. The war had ended. The weapon was gone. The truth had come out. And in the silence of the stars, her legacy would live on. One of sacrifice, bravery, and a search for a peace that could never be fully realized, but always hoped for. The galaxy would rebuild. And somewhere, far away, Talia would find her own way forward. In the dark expanse of space, Talia's shuttle disappeared into the stars, leaving behind a world forever changed. The battle had been won, but the story was far from over.